My buddy called me up and asked me if I wanted to watch a football game with him. As soon as I get there, she calls me up, telling me to come home already.
Did she have a good reason?
She got home from work. She wanted me home.
Did you call the man in the middle of the game and tell him to come home for no particular reason whatsoever?
Yes, I did, Your Honor.
And why do you think that's okay?
In today's session of Divorce Court, after 2 years of marriage, Chris Brown says he's divorcing Santina Lowe because she's controlling.
There's this concert I like to go to with my buddies. First, she told me I could go. Then, she's like, well, I gotta work, I can't go, so therefore you can't go.
Is there any point in time where he can just go out and do something without you?
Yeah, when I'm at work.
But Santina says Chris is a horrible father.
Your Honor, ask him how many times he's seen his son in the last 5 months.
How many times have you seen your son in the last 5 months?
Well, with all the overtime and working all the time, I hardly ever get to see him.
He just went on vacation with his friends.
I went on vacation.
He just went on vacation with his friends for a
Virginia,
week.
play golf.
For a week.
If I wasn't with my kids and somebody said you got 4 days, they'd get every one of them.
She's the judge who gives rules on the law and life. She's intense with common sense. She's Judge Lynn Toler, where real couples deal with real life. Divorce Court. We now join Chris Brown and Santina Lowe as Judge Lynn hears their case.
Ms. Lowe, you have brought Mr. Brown here seeking $800 for a car, the cost of repairing a car that you say Mr. Brown ruined. Before we get to that, however, I want to talk to Mr. Brown a little bit. Why don't you tell me a little bit about your marriage and how we've ended up in divorce court today?
Look, Your Honor, I wanted to get divorced because my wife was supposed to be a wife, not my mother.
Okay.
Okay? My buddy called me up and asked me if I wanted to watch a football game with him.
Right.
So I said, yeah, that's fine. Well, as soon as I get there, she calls me up, telling me to come home already. You know, I can't stand with controlling, especially if she's my wife.
Did she have a good reason?
No.
She just wanted you home.
Yeah. She got home from work. She wanted me home.
Did you call the man in the middle of the game and tell him to come home for no particular reason whatsoever?
Yes, I did, Your Honor.
And why do you think that's okay?
He's a cheater. I had to go to Chicago for a work trip.
Right.
I come back, and there is a class ring sitting on my bedside table.
Now, Mr. Brown, let's talk about the class ring. How did it, that doesn't mean he was cheating, necessarily. But let's ask him and see what he says. Mr.
Okay,
Brown, how'd that happen?
There's a guy I work with, okay? We were hooking him up with our neighbor. So one night, he comes over, they hook up.
So he was trying to hook up two lonely people. Mrs. Lowe, do you believe that, or are there other instances in your relationship that lead you to believe that he does cheat on you?
There's other instances, Your Honor. I have found numbers in his iPod. There's been naked pictures of girls in his phone.
Okay, let me start with something that she told me she didn't love me no more. Told me I needed to move on, I needed to move out. If she's moving on, I'm gonna move on. I'm not even gonna worry about it no more. So therefore, you know, I have girls on my phone.
Okay.
You know what?
Now, when did she tell you to move on?
When she told me she didn't love me and that I needed to move out. That's pretty much.
How long had you been married when that occurred?
It was just last year.
Your Honor, we were going to try to work on things when I found those pictures.
But when I wanted to go to marriage counseling, you said no.
Your Honor, I gave him 6 months. I gave him 6 months to clean up his act, to be the husband and the provider that he needed to be for me and my son.
But when I wanted to go to marriage counseling, she denied it.
Mrs. Lowe, I'm going to say something to you. You got him too tightly tethered. You want too much. He's got to be home in the middle of the game. You're going to tell him you don't love him anymore, kick him out, tell him to move on. He moves on, but he's got 6 months to move back and love you again and all that kind of stuff. You can't run a man like that. Can you tell me some more stories about how she controls you?
There was a time, there's this concert I like to go to with my buddies, and so happens, you know, my cousin, which is her best friend, you know, asked me to go with them. At first she told me I could go. Then she's like, well, I gotta work, I can't go, so therefore you can't go.
Did you say that?
Yes, I did. Why did he get to go and not have to take responsibility for our son?
But grandparents wanted to watch him that weekend.
Another story.
I can't keep my parents.
And, you know, is there any point in time where he can just go out and do something without you? I mean, is that ever okay with you?
Yeah, when I'm at work. But when I come home, I would like for him to
But when
spend
I'm at work,
time
she
with
told me I
me.
couldn't do nothing. If she told me no, I couldn't do something, you know, I would be like, why not? You know, and she would complain. But then again, I would back off just because I wanted to save the marriage, because she would threaten me, well, I'm just going to divorce you if you do this. I would back off.
Do you go to the big D every time he does something you don't like?
Not every time, no.
But a lot of times.
The major things, yes.
The major things. I'm just going to get a divorce if you don't straighten up.
Yes.
And I'm picking on you, Mrs. Lowe, so I'm going to give you an opportunity. You tell me what's wrong with Mr. Brown.
First off, he's a poor father. I went to work one day. I come home. I go to bed. He's supposed to be watching our 6-month-old son who just started crawling.
Right.
He's, you know, getting to the age where
Into
he wants to
things.
explore. He's into everything. I get woken up by my son screaming.
And what was happening when you got up? What happened?
I run out, and my son is in the hallway with a bathing suit top strapped around his neck.
Around his neck?
Screaming. Yes.
You never told me this.
Yes, I did, because I come over and I nudged you with my foot to wake him up, and I asked him why he wasn't watching him.
Let me tell you something right
I fell
now.
asleep.
What happened,
You
Mr.
fell
Brown?
asleep?
I work 8 p.m. to 8 o'clock in the morning, 12-hour shift. I come home, and she doesn't want to get out of bed. You know,
Well, did
that's
she
my
work?
time to spend time with her, because when I go, my bedtime is about noon.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? I stay up for a couple hours, go to bed at noon, I get 5 hours of sleep. So, I mean, I can only stay up for so long.
Well, what are your hours of work?
My hours at that time were 2 to 10 p.m. And then I would come home and take care of our son as well.
Because
So
I'd
you
be at
can't
work.
But you can't use me being lazy because I was tired, because I provide
But you
for our
complained
son.
that I was tired because I worked 12-hour
provide for our
shifts.
son, Your Honor.
Right.
You know, I was the one going to work and taking care of our son.
You didn't
when
have to
all
drive
he had to
45
worry about
minutes.
was go to work and then come home and play his video games.
Do you play
which
the
was
video
so much
games,
more
Mr.
I'm a guy.
Brown?
I'm a guy, Your
So
Honor.
much
I
more
do
in a
not
point-
understand
Girls play video games,
that.
too.
What is wrong with you people?
When divorce court continues, what will Chris have to say for himself?
I was 6 months pregnant and in the hospital with kidney stones. I was released on bed rest. He decides, oh, well, my mom called me. We're going to go out for my birthday.
If you would like your case heard on divorce court, call us toll free at 1-877-311-2222 or log on to our website at divorcecourt.com and become a fan at facebook.com/divorcecourt. Divorce Court is back with the case of Santina Lowe, who is suing her husband for $800. The cost to repair her car, she says he destroyed. But first, Judge Lynn continues to hear why this couple is divorcing.
When I come home from work, it was never, you know, how was your night? It was you
Angry.
sleeping or, you know, yelling at me when I'm waking you up,
Because
saying
I
good morning.
worked. Because I worked
Because
and I
I
took
work
care
12
of our
hours
son.
too, 8 p.m. to 8
Because
o'clock
I
in the morning.
worked
I
and took
come
care of
home.
our son.
I come home and you're like, why are you waking me up? It's 8 o'clock in the morning.
Your
You
Honor,
know,
ask him
it
how
was
many
never a
times he's
good
seen
morning.
his son in the last 5 months.
How many times have you seen your son in the last 5 months?
Well, with all the overtime and working all the time, I hardly ever get to see him.
You hardly ever get to see him.
You know,
Make
and then
time.
if I do
work
want
too.
him,
I
if
work
I do,
too. He can, Your Honor, he can make time.
Yeah.
You know what? He has.
Okay, let me ask you this, Mr. Brown. How many times in the last 5 months have you played video games?
Actually, I haven't. I barely played them lately.
But you played them.
I played them.
How many in the last 5 times in the last 5 months have you gone out with your friends?
Never actually.
Never,
Oh,
not one time.
Your Honor,
Nope,
he
I-
just went on vacation with
I
his
went on
friends.
vacation.
He just went on vacation with his friends for
Virginia
a
to
week.
play golf.
For a week.
Now you mean
For a
to
week?
no, well,
I
wait a
was
minute.
gone for 2 days.
No, you mean to tell me you were working so hard that for 5 months you can barely see your son, but when you do get time, you pick up a golf club and leave town?
Well, I
Thank
let her
you.
know.
Thank you.
It didn't. I'm not talking about I let her know. If I haven't seen my kids for a while, I'm not leaving town. When I get a minute,
And
I'm going to see them.
I actually did see my son before I went.
Your Honor, my
I
time
had
is spent
him
at
before
work
I
and
went
then
on
at
vacation.
home.
I told her, I said,
Had
I
him
want to
for
see
how
my
long?
son before I go.
Had him for how
For
long?
2 days.
For 2
because
days?
Then I was leaving. Then when I came back, I went back to work.
If I wasn't with my kids and somebody said you got 4 days, they'd get every one of them. All 4 days.
Let's talk
Your
about
Honor.
let's talk about kids right now.
Your Honor.
Well, does
what
he pay
about
child
all the
support? Does he help you with financially with
No.
the baby?
When we first separated in January, we had an agreement. He would pay me $70 every 2 weeks. That's pretty lenient.
Yes, it is.
That's all I asked him
I
for.
wanted a receipt.
$70 every 2 weeks. He did
Did
that
he not
three
pay
times.
the $70? Oh, okay.
He
He
did that
three
three
times?
times in the last 5 months.
The reason why I paid her 3 times because I said I want to start seeing receipts. I want to know what that money's going to. She said no.